the reality is, if I don't change and innovate, my company won't exist anymore. Hey friend, Levi here. I've got a few videos in the backlog that I'm going to be releasing in the next several days, and in the current circumstances, it didn't feel quite right for me to keep uploading as normal without addressing some of the stuff that's been going on in my life and also in the world as a whole. Stuff that I'm pretty nervous about with our business, but then also some pretty hard things that have happened in my family life as a whole in these past couple of weeks. That's part of the reason why I haven't really been active on social and haven't really been a part of the conversation insofar as what's been going on in North America and the world. But we're going to touch on some of that virus stuff deeper in the video. I want to kind of touch on what's been going on in our family life on the front end here. But I guess more importantly than any of that, if you take anything away from this video, I would, now's a great time, I think, to serve people. Serve people with your time, with your encouragement, with your resources that you have to spare. Individually, I think, in times where things are a little bit more uncertain than they normally are, this is an amazing opportunity to bless people. That is the posture that I'm hoping to enter into and do more of, and that's what I want to encourage you to do, and also just assure you that makes a massive impact in the lives of others. So I think we've got a pretty special opportunity to really stick up for each other and serve people in this less than ideal season or time frame that as a world we're entering into together. I've been uploading videos from my February road trip, and so I returned to Canada in the end of February there, and some people were asking kind of where I was at in the timeline, so that's kind of why I think it's important also to do an update video like this. I wonder if that angle, I wonder if the sun's kind of messing it up, but we got to take things back to the start of this year, and truthfully, 2020 has been a really tough year for my family, for my siblings, for my parents. It hasn't been smooth sailing, and some of those things, I don't really feel the need to get into some of the details of that, but there's been some hardship and some loss, and that's just really tough in general. For me, coming out of Christmas, I kind of entered into a prolonged feeling of just seasonal, melancholic mental health meh. It wasn't I wasn't doing great, and for me, when I find myself in those places, I like to take action and do something, and the road trip down to California was definitely a part of that for me, where I was trying to actively just kind of hit reset, get encouraged, spend time around other people. And so while my wife was on a work trip, I just took off on a road trip. And in a lot of ways, it was a massive success, getting to see other creators, getting to see other people. It started to really recharge me and get me excited again for what the rest of the year is going to look like. And on the way back up into Canada, there's some funny hiccups on the road trip that I still haven't shared in video form yet that are pretty outrageous. So I think you're going to get quite a kick out of the next video. But on the way up into Canada, those last few days I was driving pretty long days, and I get a text from my dad that his father had taken a fall and was in the hospital. A man whose health has been pretty incredible, to say the least, across the last decades. Someone who's been always there in my life, and to hear that he was hospitalized was pretty heavy. And so I really just wanted to be home and to be back in Canada and see him. And this is someone in my life that if you've been to any of my workshops or any of my conference talks, I reference him often. He's a builder, he's a maker, he's someone who emigrated to Canada and has done some incredible things. What is that noise? So I'm just pretty anxious to get up to Canada and see my Opa in the hospital, and I put in some long driving days and didn't film much. And on some of those driving days, that's when I was listening to podcasts, sharing stories of the coronavirus in other developed countries around the world. And that's when the dots started to connect together for me for the first time, where I started to really settle in that things in the coming months and weeks here are going to be really heavy, and it's going to be challenging, and we aren't ready. And that was a sobering atmosphere for me coming back into Canada, and just being anxious to see my Opa, and seeing him in the hospital was really tough. I've never seen him that frail. Someone who's just been so strong and steady for so long. It's just tough. My wife and I went off out of cell service into the bush, just camped next to a river for a couple days, just trying to process and make decisions about how we were going to move forward. There's a pretty good support structure at the hospital, and my father and his siblings looking after Opa there. So we came back to the island here, and in those early days of March, that's kind of when I started to process what does it mean to self-isolate, and how it didn't seem like anybody around here was even nervous at all then, and everyone was kind of just cracking jokes still, and it was hard to be. That was challenging for me, because I wanted to be the wake up people, but it's also I don't know how helpful all of that is. And some of those grocery trips around that time, normally we're getting stuff, our food choices started to change, because we're usually getting fresh food, and we started just shifting more towards non-perishable stuff, just stuff that is going to last longer if we need it to. And that was just very weird and eerie, but also felt responsible, because we don't have a grocery store right here. We're kind of a little bit self-supported if things are challenging, if we can't just go down to the grocery store. So just tried to be responsible and have enough food to last a couple weeks or a month. And leading up then is to a day before my birthday, my Opa passed away. For the last 25 years, I've shared my birthday with my Opa. And this was the first year where I didn't. I still don't know how to fully process something like that. And he was someone that meant a lot to me, and I really looked up to him and his legacy. And processing this all has been really challenging. And amidst all this that's going on, things start ramping up here in North America, and suddenly there's bans on groups over 250 people and gatherings and events, and you can just feel the country start to click into gear and start to take action. And here we are as a family trying to plan a funeral, and trying to get family members out here, and just realizing that this is gonna be very different than maybe what we would hope it could be. And it was. The days before, there was a ban of gatherings over 50 people, and just everything changed so fast. And so we did a family-only celebration of life and burial, and it was pretty heavy. He had a life so well lived, so we're celebrating that, but it's also just a lot to process. And yeah, before the funeral, we were here on the island, and I was trying to self-isolate since around March 10th or so. That was kind of when I haven't really been around people since then, and traveling over to the funeral didn't feel great to be doing that. But then at the same time, it's the funeral of my Opa, and so just trying to be super cautious, stay in the vehicle, and not really going into stores much or anything like that. And now after the funeral, we're back here on the island, and it's kind of fully. On one hand, I'm grateful that our country is starting to do stuff, but it also kind of just feels like it's a week or two already too late. And in the sense that our medical system here in Canada is not going to be able to cope with the amount of people that'll be in the hospitals and need critical care. And it's not going to be great how this happens. Looking at every other developed country, looking at South Korea, Italy, Iran, countries in Europe, China, the way that this has gone in every other developed country has not gone well. And there's kind of a sense here still that, it'll be different here. But I don't know. That's not to sow fear or to be panicky. It's just trying to acknowledge the facts and just be practical about this, and say this is going to be really, really hard for our country. And both economically in a massive way, and for our health and for those that we care about and love and our fragile family members. And even for us, it's not a guarantee that our health is going to be safe. Thankfully, I don't have health complications or pre-existing illnesses, but for a lot of people that I know, that's a reality. And that's just, man, that's a lot of uncertainty. So over onto the business side, my approach to business is to have a lot of streams of revenue, so that way when client work dries up, we can still survive and still do things. But to give you a little bit of a picture, on that road trip, I was meeting with clients and we had stuff booked that's been canceled. I've had about 3 projects that are no longer happening. I had trips that I was going to go on that aren't happening. And so that's on my client work side, where basically without much notice or forgiveness, it's just cut right off. But I mean, as a freelancer and as a business owner, I'm used to that. That's not that unusual to suddenly have a bit of a dry spell, but it's just challenging knowing that it's hard to see when that dry spell on the client work side is really going to clear up. And then also on the education side, that's another big part of what I do. Is I love getting people together for workshops, and we're approaching the biggest workshop season for me, where I go on these sailing trips with dozens of people, and it's such a big part of our year. And now, I mean, our border is closed with the US for non-essential travel. A lot of the people who come on my workshops are from the US. Like, the workshops are still weeks out, but it's not looking great. It's pointing towards the reality that basically none of the workshops will be able to happen. And that's revenue that I greatly appreciate each year. It's a massive help and boost as we go into the summer there, and we use that for various different things, and it enables us to take on more creative projects, and to just be faced with the reality that that's going to be cut off this year is hard for me to come to grips with. And as things stand, if I don't change and innovate, my company won't make it through this. And I'm prepared, and I'm willing, and I'm optimistic that I'm going to be able to adapt and change. But as things are, things will need to change, because it's not just going to be easy, which is fine, but that's a tough reality to come to grips with. And of course, there's the YouTube side of what I'm doing, and that is a pretty small fraction of my total income, but it looks like I'm going to need to be doubling down on that and get creative and try to find new ways to utilize it. And I've been working on an online masterclass for the Adventure Film Academy. That's my education side of what I do, and I've been shooting material for that and writing for that for a while now, but I haven't actually filmed it. And I don't even know if I made that right now, if people would be interested in buying something like that, spending hundreds of dollars on something as non-essential as education. I just don't think that's going to be likely. So I'm starting to scratch my head here on some of the changes that I'm going to need to make, and we're slashing our expenditures and trying to tighten the belt and lengthen the runway, because what else are you going to do? There's a lot of uncertainty around that. So with coronavirus stuff, I wanted to be a part of the conversation earlier and making stuff on the channel and being involved on Instagram, but it was just, with the funeral going on, it was just too much. And thankfully, some of my peers on this platform have been pretty active in getting good factual information out there and just encouraging people to take this more seriously than it seems they are. Listen to the experts, listen to the scientists, listen to the epidemiologists, the people that are raising the red flags and begging people to take this seriously. The economic impact now is far beyond just what happens if we close things, because if this hits us with full force in North America, and that amount of travesty and devastation is like, the impact of that, I think, is going to be even far greater than if we take serious precautionary measures. And that's coming from someone whose business is going to have a very hard time making it through this, if at all. But I think we need to take this a lot more seriously than we have. I'm with the conversation that I'm having with people here in Canada, I'm kind of concerned that people, at least on the West Coast, it appears people outside of cities don't really seem to be getting it quite yet, and that's pretty alarming. Because the truth is, our medical system as a whole is not capable of sustaining the influx that is almost guaranteed to be coming. And yet some people are operating on blind optimism as if that's not going to be the case. And that's alarming. We can do our part by not being a vector for this virus, of not making things more challenging for the medical staff than they already are going to be. But then what is our response as people making it through a challenging time? I mean, my response is going to be to make things. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a lot of things. That's how I'm going to process this. I'm going to try learn stuff. I'm going to try invest in other people. I'm going to try be encouraging. That's the direction, because it can't just stay in this state of panic. But man, do I feel for the families in other countries. We're hearing stories from Italy where people can't go say goodbye to their dead grandparents. And as someone who just lost my opa, that would be even more so devastating to know the complications around trying to do a funeral at this time, and how frustrating that was for us to imagine a scenario where he passes away in a hospital and we can't even say goodbye. That is the reality that we are facing here in North America. And not just old people. It's not just old people, people with pre-existing illnesses. And I'm fortunate to not have one, but I want to be safe for those around me in life that do. Anyhow, I don't want to lecture to you here. I mainly want to finish off with encouraging you. If you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're consuming way too much news or online stuff, unplug, turn your phone off, make things. Send a note of encouragement to your friends. I'm kind of lost for words on that one. So maybe you'll let me know in the comments what we got to do. But I'm going to close this off here with an important sentiment for me, and that is, remember, life's better when you make stuff. See ya.